Dude, my daughter's done, so she's, my daughter wants to be a police officer, did I tell you?
What year of school is she?
She's a senior at West High.
She gotta take the test, man, to make it
That's what we're trying to do. She just went on her first ride-along in St. Charles.
Yeah.
She's taking the Wabansi courses and, I don't know what it's
Yeah,
called.
just,
She
I
goes
was at the
like
copy machine, so
from
I
like
figured.
1 to 3 every afternoon at Wabansi for the criminal justice deal.
Right.
So she's been doing that all year.
Yeah.
And she's got another ride-along coming up.
She's gotta call City Hall and make sure because they've gotta be giving a test pretty soon.
Yeah, I don't know
Because I
that.
know a couple of the kids.
There's an internet site that the chief told me to go on.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, blueline.com, is that?
Blueline.com, yeah.
Call the meeting in order. Roll call.
Henry Champion,
Present.
Bill Powell,
Present.
Matty Coble,
I haven't spoken with Commissioner Cole. I do believe she'll be here though.
Ray Cruz,
Present.
Dave Richard,
Here.
Scott Morris,
Here.
Any comments, corrections, the minutes, the last meetings?
No.
Have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Second.
Motion been approved.
We can do that. We can't do that today. We have to do that
Oh,
on
it's all Wednesday.
Wednesday. Sorry.
So what?
We have to do that on Wednesday. So
Oh, okay,
we can. I mean, I wish we could do it today.
go ahead.
Hey, Matty.
I take back my second.
Yeah.
The Housing Authority for the month of October had a much smaller profit than we're used to. We're used to seeing about $50,000, $60,000 a month. We had an $18,000 profit, so we're at about $240,000 in profit for the year. Programmatically, that kind of shakes out to, there was a $78,000 profit for the public housing program, which has about a $537,000 profit for the year. And then the Section 8 program had a $900 loss and is operating at about a $121,000 loss for the fiscal year. So all in, we had a pretty good month again. I know it was lower than our previous month of September. If you recall, September had a very large capital influx. October was the first month of the government shutdown, so we did not have access to all the funding that we normally would have had access to. So you'll probably see an uptick in the profit in November once we get those numbers compiled.
So they're gonna make that up, what they didn't.
They haven't determined whether they're going to, typical kind of HUD thing. We basically got about 80% of the funding we usually get for the month.
Okay.
What we ended up doing, we went through midway and tried to draw down as much funds as we could for the month of November as well. So what you'll probably see in November is the catch up from October and November's funding. So it'll look a little bit higher than you might expect on the revenue side. Are there any other questions on the financials? Are there any questions on the list of bills?
Not here.
Mr. Chairman, may I move to the staff reports?
Go ahead.
As I think you guys are aware, the Housing Authority has begun to work with our developer to identify and look over some of the sites that they are looking for the scattered site project. So they are going through about 10 units at a time, identifying specific units that they want to purchase and trying to get those under contract. To date, we haven't had any real opposition to those. I think the list, and I believe Rick from the city also lists the list as well. So everybody's kind of on board with the properties that they are selecting. We will have to have a resolution very soon, probably in December, as far as the project fixed vouchers. That's just our commitment to that project. That's the only funding, the only financial obligation that we're going to have to the project. As far as any purchasing or acquisition, that's completely on the developer to take care of. So we will probably see that resolution in December. I know the developer wishes we do it sooner, but they can hold off for 30 days. It'll be okay. Also, as you know, we did open our waiting list back in October. That closed on Friday at 4:30. We received a lot of applications, so we're in the process now of going through those applications. We are going to have to put them all in the system and then have the system process what's basically called a random lottery generator to give each applicant a spot on our waiting list. As the board requested, I think in the last board meeting, we will ask at least one member of the board, probably the chairman or vice chairman, to attend the lottery just to make sure that everything is done fairly and we're not cheating at all. So, also, we have now completed the upgrades on our 4th scattered site unit. So we are quickly moving along. I think we're probably either at pace or slightly ahead of pace for what we expected. As you recall, from the strategic plan, we wanted to have 6 units completed for the full fiscal year, which ends in March. And right now we're already at 4. We're usually doing 1 every other month to completion. What we have realized is that we've gotten much better at this. If you recall, our Brighton unit was the first one. It cost us around $33,000. And our most recent over on Manor Street cost under $20,000, and actually has been upgraded far more than the Brighton unit was. So we're starting to master the art, and I think Jimmy and Carlos all the credit for that. Really working on our contractors, working with our maintenance guys to find the right balance of contracted services versus in-house services. Actually, you do, and this isn't in the report, and I apologize. In front of each of you are some presentations, and these are basically handouts that we have developed that are both in English and in Spanish that we're using to give to different organizations whenever we're out in the public. If we're doing any kind of event or show, we take these with us and hand out to individuals so that they're just aware of the kinds of units we have, how to apply, how to get in touch with the housing authority with any questions that they might have. Just some basic information. We try to make it as easy to carry around. We didn't want to do a full page document because typically, I know somebody gives me a full sheet of paper, I don't want to carry it, fold it up, throw it away. These are a little smaller, easier to carry, but they do have some very basic information about how to apply for housing, what kind of requirements there are for housing as well. Like if you look at the other side, it's in Spanish, and I did not do that. Maria worked on the translations. The other thing that I would like to show you all is, one of the things we've been talking about is some of the rebranding of the agency. And one of the primary focuses of that rebranding was to have a new logo. So finally our marketing firm's gotten back to us with the first drafts of our logos. We kind of got them down to these 4. They're on each of your tablets if you don't want to look on the TV screen. But these are the 4 that we're looking at right now. I think the 2 fan favorites are the 2 on the left, the block and the kind of fancier font. But just, we wanted to make sure the board had an opportunity to see these. I'll get them emailed out to you guys as well. Just so you know, we are making progress on the marketing and rebranding efforts. So right now we're, as a staff, we're looking at them just to make sure we try to narrow it down. Probably 2, like I said, it'll probably be the 2 on the left. And then we'll work with the marketing team to really kind of hone in on exactly what we want to see from those 2 logos. But we did want to share this with the board before we got to that point.
You said the 2 on the left?
Those are the 2 that are most liked by the staff so far.
You know, I look at the top AHA and it kind of like, I like the other AHA better. Lowercase.
Shouldn't that include a house?
It could. We could go back and have them include a house.
See, to be honest with you, I like the one on the top right, but it doesn't have any, if it had some kind of design to it, I mean, I like the lettering and the rural housing on it, but it doesn't have any
And the front is better.
there.
What do the blocks represent?
Well, we could always say that the block represents the building block that the housing authority is. And
Yeah, you
housing
can
is
move
the
that around.
foundation.
You like the front on that side and the block here?
Yeah, you could always say, but
That's
it
technology.
doesn't have me.
Absolutely. Well, we'll email it out to the board. You guys, if you want to give any feedback, Chad, please give it back to me, and I'll get that back to our marketing firm and get them to work on it.
What is it now?
What is what?
What do we have now?
Oh, the logo. It's not on there, I don't think. It's basically the 3 capital letters, there's a little family underneath the H.
AHA. Yeah.
You may have it on my phone. I'll email it out to you guys too. I don't know if I have it on my phone right now. Are there any questions in regards to the report?
In terms of how you guys save like 10 grand in cost,
Mhm.
is there just a couple of items or is it a smorgasbord of?
Actually, Carlos.
The what?
The savings on the most recent property, how do we basically come
On
up?
that one, whether we get a lot of materials, that we approach the manufacturer directly. Like we went to over to Chicago and went to the manufacturer for the cabinets. I mean, that's why we got like really good deal on that.
So basically cost on materials.
We're doing, and Carlos has been just phenomenal at cutting out the middleman. You know, anytime we have, you know, we know who our contractors go to, he's been able to kind of skip the contractors and go get the materials himself. So, again, we've been saving at every angle there.
Good job, good job. That's impressive.
The site selections, the list that was circulated, does the board have any input in terms of how that works, or is it, they basically make that recommendation and our authority then comes with just assigning the vouchers to those?
If there is a problem with one of the sites, certainly we can address that with Renshaw and make sure they understand that, you know, we do have a concern one way or the other. So certainly if there's a site on there that maybe the board is not comfortable with, we can have them remove that site.
I guess where I was going, so that's, so are all these properties currently in foreclosure, or are there some of them just for sale on the market, or some combination, or?
It's some combination, mostly foreclosures and abandoned properties.
There were a couple of short sales on there.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I didn't go through the whole list, but I was just wondering if it made sense to have, you guys basically go through the properties and I just identify that there wasn't a location that's not attractive for whatever reason, it's sitting across from some, commercial facility that wouldn't be, good to live by or whatever. I haven't done that on all of them, and I didn't know if you guys have to make sure that there's not a property on there that we say, well, wow, that's not a very good place to have a home.
Well, certainly, and I did review the list with my understanding of the city, and I think in the email I mentioned I wasn't particularly opposed to any of the sites. I think that they're fairly well spread out and in reasonably good areas. I think there are more on the west than the east. But certainly, if, like I said, we can kind of redo that and go through, and there'll be more. So there's I think the first 10 or 15 they've circulated now. But we'll certainly go back with those and with any new ones that they come by with a fine, kind of a finer comb on that, if you like.
Yeah, I think that would be good. I don't know what the criteria would be. Just make sure they're in, kind of stable neighborhoods, and they're all obviously going to be Aurora schools. So I think that's all known. But I was thinking more just from the lineup of, where these things line up compared to like commercial zoning and stuff like that.
I know I've worked with Community Housing Authority of DuPage before, and they went through a round where they had some money and they were purchasing these properties, and they had like guidelines, like they couldn't be within 500 feet of a train track or of a gas station or something like that. So I know, and I don't know, I feel like that came from wherever they were getting the money, which I thought might have been from HUD, but maybe not.
It may have been a different. I mean, the interesting thing for our program is that we aren't putting up any of the purchase money, so there aren't any rules regarding that. That would come from, I guess, the city, and then from whichever source of funding Renshaw is using to acquire the properties. Now, because again, we are partners in the deal, certainly we have every right, and we retain the right to speak to them regarding which properties they select. So we do have that opportunity and that leverage to kind of lean on them, especially with the project-based vouchers not being awarded yet.
Have they put any offers in on any properties yet?
Nothing I'm aware of. I think they're doing contracting now. So, well, I guess so, because that's the process. So yes.
Yeah, I think it's just about 10 offers that have been made, and they've looked at a lot more than that. And then when you were talking about the distribution between east and west, I think that mostly reflects the ones that they put offers.
So far, yeah, so far.
But as far as I know, I haven't heard that anything's proceeded past that phase. I don't know that they have any accepted offers or anything like that yet. That was just, I think, last week that the first offers went in on 10 or 11, and there were about, I think it was maybe 7 of them on the west side and 4 of them on the east side.
Weren't we talking about, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we wanted to put, or at least have more towards north of Aurora, Batavia?
Mm-hmm. That was for our own internal projects. That wasn't for this specific project.
Okay, so the difference.
Yeah. These, we wanted that for more of our public housing residents than our Section 8 residents.
Rick, have you looked at the specific list to see if, is it a concern or is it not a concern in terms of where the neighborhoods?
I looked at the specific ones where that they put offers on.
Yeah.
And didn't see, there weren't any, I guess I didn't go out and drive all of them or anything like that, so I don't know for sure what is necessarily right next door, but they're in pretty familiar areas. They're all, these ones were all east or west side. There were maybe just a handful of them that were out closer to the high school. But they're all, you know, areas that I was familiar with and didn't, you know, just like kind of looking at the block that they were on, didn't have any concerns. I know that they do have a larger list of ones that they've looked at, and I have not kind of gone all the way through those. I think to Keith's point too, just to remember, these are project-based. All project-based, and a requirement of that is that these are gonna have to be supported living. So we were talking about veterans, seniors, people that may not have kids, but may have different concerns than what you're talking about. I mean, so now
That's
other
right.
things are, I mean, it's a good point, well taken, that as those things come up, and actually, I guess there's an opportunity now where we do have a list of houses that they've looked at and have not put offers on yet, and we can circle back with them to say, are there any of these you've canceled off your list so that we can spend our time looking at the rest of those as to whether or not they make sense before they do, then put the next round of offers in.
Mhm.
I looked at the list and personally,
You didn't see anything?
I'm trying to
Do you have
sit
that?
here and think of, yeah, I tried to pull up the list and I couldn't, I must have deleted it, but, there's nothing that really jumped out, you know, at me as a real problem from
Yeah.
a police perspective. Yeah.
I was just, yeah, I hadn't looked,
I wish I had
I looked at
seen
that
it.
map a week ago and I didn't.
And again, what I can do is just kind of circle back, send the list to everybody, and I'll go back through the list too, just and identify, you know, kind of the surrounding area as well.
Right.
I have a question, Rick.
Yep.
Did you say, no kids?
No, not necessarily, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
think some of, at least one of the population's seniors are not likely to have school-age kids. And then, but veterans obviously could have kids.
Right.
People with
Right.
disabilities could have kids.
Okay.
I think this is gonna be, you know, less kids involved in these 40 units than would be involved in a typical 40 units.
Okay.
Perhaps, because of the requirements that HUD has and who can be served, because this is 100% project-based vouchers, whereas normally they have a cap.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions?
I've got the addresses right here. If you-
Okay, yeah. And do they, since a portion of these are gonna be senior, do we know, I mean, are these like ranches, or are these 2 stories, or are these, how would?
It's a pretty fair mixture. I think primarily you're gonna find 1-story ranches, but I have to look again to be
Alright.
certain as to what the makeup of the units are.
Yeah, I guess I'm not trying to, raise issues where there's not issues, I just trying, things that I was thinking about that we,
So, I mean, like I said, I'll certainly, you know, double back. I think it is important that, you know, from our perspective, especially as we're going to be providing ongoing funding, that we are comfortable with the kinds of units and with the locations of those units as well.
But they have some skin in the game too.
Absolutely. Actually,
So they should.
Yeah. I mean, to be quite, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
No,
cut
that's,
you off.
no.
They really, at least in the acquisition phase, now again, ongoing, we are really supporting the project from a project-based voucher point of view. But at least in the acquisition phase, we aren't out a dollar. They are completely responsible for the acquisition. They're completely responsible for the management and maintenance as well. We're really basically paying rent for residents. And I apologize, I really didn't mean to cut you off, sorry.
yeah, but that's, I mean, that's, we're paying, I mean, and we're,
We're
They're-
cash flowing it
right,
long-term.
Right.
right.
Here's my concern. My concern is, as a business person, I'm looking at it as a business person. They're going and finding, and not that this is negative, the best of the properties, because they know they only gotta put so much money into them, where there's some other properties that maybe would be better done and fixed up for the residents in the city. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I think it's opposite though. They're actually
Right,
looking for
right.
less expensive ones up front
These are-
because
I mean,
more
this
of
is right around the
the
corner,
money that they're
right,
receiving
Aurora
to
Avenue,
fix
that's
them
a
up
photo.
is
Yeah,
the
this
bulk. Is
red
that not
one.
right?
I apologize, I had
This one's.
They're
I know
really
the house,
looking
I
for
think,
cheaper
well, I'm not sure if it's
properties
the same house, but
initially
this one is in
because
foreclosure on the corner
they're
of,
using their own like their funds for the purchasing, but then the renovation of it
South Aurora University.
is coming from
Yeah.
tax credits and things like
East
that.
side,
Exactly.
yes, these two are.
So
Second
it's-
Columbia and then
Right.
146.
Right, I mean, it's in there, well, no, they can't be used for acquisition.
right,
They
can't.
cannot.
Right, oh, yeah.
Yeah, they can't.
So,
be
yeah,
renewals.
Yeah.
so it's ideal for them, like you
No,
said, to
it's
find
not,
the
it's really,
cheapest
and this is the
possible
11 that they gave
properties.
us, it's just on the
And
west
then,
side.
you know, do the acquisition as,
Lake Lawn is
as best as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
And I do understand, I mean, I see the point you're making, I mean, they're probably, I mean, where there may be units that serve a greater good that may be overlooked because of the
You gotta
cost.
put too much money
Right.
into it.
And don't get me wrong, and I certainly understand how that can be a challenge. I think I probably would do the same thing for the housing authority though too.
If I was a business person, I think that's what I would
Right.
do. But again, as a commissioner for the Aurora Housing Authority, I would wanna have a happy medium,
Right.
so everybody
Because
wins.
the more I think about it, yeah, they don't, because we're basically handing them the tenants
Right.
and the rent.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter too much to them where it is or,
True.
because wherever it is and whatever it's next to, we're gonna give
Exactly.
them residence for. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know it's a hard balance because I know that they have to act quickly and move on this stuff, you know, but, you know, I feel like we don't have as much hands-on what they're doing right now as maybe we should. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, it's not like there's a big pool of, say, 500 places that we can go say, okay, we would prefer if you did
Well,
this
maybe we
60.
should take a lunch hour and drive to some of these properties or something, but I don't, you know, I don't know where our role is in this, you know, it's just kind of
I
weird.
mean, I don't see any problem with it, us, you know, driving by the properties, you know, just sitting here looking at the list, I know all of them. You know, I know all the neighborhoods and stuff, and I think, you know, realistically, I mean, there's two that's right around the corner from here. There's one on Redwood, there's one down the street in the 800 block of Plum, there's one on the Evans Lawn, the 600 block. Those are all decent neighborhoods.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, there's one on the east side at 1169 Howard, which is just south of Phillips Park. It'd be southwest of Phillips Park. 146 East Avenue and 772 Columbia is just right off New York Street on the east side, 700 block, just east of Union Street. So, I mean,
That's a good location too.
yeah.
There's a lot of shopping and stuff around.
right. So, I mean, housing wide, and even, of course, I've been out of policing now for 5 years, but police wise, I mean, the neighborhoods are decent now.
Yeah, location wise, I
Location-wise.
worry about the building, the structures and
Right.
stuff, you know.
Right, now that we don't know until you
Yeah,
turn around and
right. You have to
take a
go
look.
back.
You know, now I'd make a guess on a couple of these that the structures are pretty, I would guess, pretty decent, but you never know until you get in there and, you know, if they can look good from the outside and be,
Well, if you don't mind me, and they do have, you know, the tax credits are worth almost $8 million, and they're spending on 40 properties, that's $200,000 per property, so they do have, I mean, even if there are some structural issues, they do have the funding to really invest in them significantly.
and I think it's incumbent upon us to turn around
And
and
who,
take a
remind
look
me,
at that
like,
when they're
maintenance wise,
redoing them.
who down the line is responsible for the maintenance? Like,
They have a management company that will be responsible for the maintenance and management.
money wise too,
Yes.
they're responsible
Yes.
for the roofs and
Absolutely.
how wide the windows and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, now, we do have the responsibility and right to inspect those properties as Section 8 units. So any structural or other, you know, concerns that we have as far as inspection is concerned, we can step in and cut off the funding if there's an issue there.
That's good.
Can we count on our partner, the city, to send the inspectors out there?
But we just have our own inspectors to send in,
Oh,
but I'm
okay.
sure the city will
Well,
do
and
the same.
They will be required to be in the city's rental licensing program, so they'll be
Okay.
annually inspected as well. In fact, we've had a couple preliminary meetings, with Keith and some others, about cooperatively
Right.
doing some of those inspections, but they will be inspected by the city as well,
Okay.
as well as the
Yeah,
city.
so they'll get 2 inspections per year.
So going back to my original point, if I'm them, I'm picking the best properties that I gotta spend the least amount of money in,
Absolutely.
okay? That doesn't necessarily help out the entire city in some of the worst neighborhoods, I don't know.
That's not true though. They're looking for the cheapest ones to acquire that may cost more to fix up because they don't get the tax credits for the purchase of it. So they're looking, so to them, if they're gonna buy a $200,000 property that they need to spend $5,000 on, that's not as good as a $25,000 property that they have to spend $200,000 on. They'd rather have the cheaper and then more repair costs because the repair cost is where they're getting the tax credits from. So in essence, it really is they are looking for the worst properties that need more work. Am I right?
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think that
In general.
well, they've got a little bit of a balance too. They're not looking for the worst.
Well,
They're
right.
looking for they're looking for the best properties that they can, that they're gonna be able to spend the money on. Cause they've gotta spend the tax credit dollars on fixing up the houses. So, but the other point is exactly right. A $200,000 house doesn't need to do any rehab. They're coming up with the acquisition costs, through other financing they've leveraged into the deal, and some of the city's dollars that are going into the deal as well. But they have a very limited acquisition budget and a pretty extensive rehab budget, so I think on balance, your point is right, Dave.
And I'm not even sure that's always a good thing, cause I'd rather have them buy some $200,000 properties in better neighborhoods so that we could get our
And
tenants into better neighborhoods.
They have
But,
asked
yeah.
us, since some of our money is going to acquisition, we have asked them to take a look at, some areas outside of King County as well. So they're, now,
Sugar Grove?
no, it'll be in Aurora. It'll be in Aurora with our funding, but they are gonna be looking, I believe they are kind of looking in the area roughly bounded by, the Kane and DuPage line, and Eola Road, and then north to the train tracks and south to the Kendall and County line.
I think I did.
So it's a pretty decent sized area that would be predominantly District Two.
Where do those real estate taxes come to for those areas?
District 204 in the city of Aurora, primarily, and then those will be different townships though as well, because that'd be, obviously I think that's mostly Naperville Township, but it's Aurora, not to be confused with Naperville, the city would not be getting any tax dollars out of it.
Any other questions?
Different, I got questions on the applicants that are coming in for you said there's a lot. You got an idea how many, and what's our process as a housing authority to kind of go through all that? What do you guys have in front of you basically?
Marie, you wanna answer that?
Sure. So we've received probably, the majority are the 3 bedrooms that we've received. We've received a few 5 bedrooms applications, a few hundred, I would assume. And as far as how they're processed, so the occupancy department will typically.
Sorry to interrupt, you said like a few hundred total, or for the 3-bedroom, or for the, because our biggest. Total. Okay.
Yeah, so they'll be still processing them for the next couple of weeks, entering them into the system, going through any that don't qualify. We have quite a few even today that came in through the mail for different bedroom sizes, so even eliminating those and responding to those and asking them to reapply when the waiting lists are open. So that'll still be a few weeks out before we have final numbers.
So like the example that you just gave, where did we open up all the bedroom sizes or just the?
Only the 3 and the 5.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? If not, Maria, report.
Okay. As you see on there, we do have a few applications that have already started, being added onto the counts. We're still working with the Ready to House pool, primarily the 1-bedrooms, to ensure that, when the Maple Terrace units are available, we can quickly house them. You do unit offers, quickly offer those. You'll see the notices that have gone out to the tenants for adverse action, as well as referrals that were done for the month of October. And we did have a total of 5 evictions at Maple Terrace. Those evictions were primarily rent related. As Mr. Gregory mentioned, the waiting list did close on the 15th. As I mentioned, it's still going to be a few weeks before we have the final numbers in. get those applications processed and in the system, as well as taking care of those that did not qualify to be on the waiting list, either because they did not qualify for the correct bedroom size, or they didn't qualify for the preferences, making sure that they have the correct preferences in the system. As far as the Maple Terrace fire and those units, we have applied for the occupancy permit to do half of that affected floor, which is gonna be about 14 units if I'm not mistaken. We should be receiving an occupancy permit soon, I hope. Other site activities, as Mr. Gregory mentioned, Manor Scattered site is pretty close to being done, should be leasable within the next couple of weeks. We have identified our next unit, which will be 528 Edison. We have already started with minor landscaping and painting the exterior of the unit. There's 32 clients on the Rouse program. And through the Rouse program, we're looking into doing a donation for mutual ground. And that'll be on December 16th. And then at the bottom, you'll see a couple other of the events that are going on at the different sites. The main one is the one all the way at the bottom. That is for all the family sites. Maine Baptist will be donating baskets for Thanksgiving to be delivered next week. Any questions?
I don't have it. Any questions?
I see 2 people have moved out and rented in the private market. Again, like, are we, doing a follow-up with them, or, you know, how they were, you know, I don't know, I just feel like we should be gathering these success stories again, you know, and, I know that's, I think 2 is the most I've seen in a month before, I think, but just throwing it out there.
No, I agree. I like success stories, and I think we need to, if we can, track that if possible.
We'll work on putting something together for that. One of the things that we've been doing is, you know, as we prepare to rebrand the agency, and we really don't expect to roll it out until we've got, I think Commissioner Boris mentioned that we have a lot of pieces all together at one time, so we don't want to piecemeal a logo here and a new website there and this. So we're waiting probably until the beginning of next fiscal year where we've got a website, a logo, new units are ready to go. Just a lot of things to roll out all at once, but when we do that rebrand, one of the things we've been working on is putting together videos of interviews of some of the success stories of families and individuals who've come out of public housing. So we've actually had, and David Kramer has been working on it, I think Clayton Muhammad from the city has agreed to do an interview. I believe Richard Irvin is on that list of people. There are a few other people who have been successful who came from Aurora Public Housing, and we have agreed to do interviews and be a part of that process. So as we have families who certainly have gone out and been able to rent on the private market or become homeowners, and we will invite them as well to be part of that. If there are no other questions, Jim?
Well, we did assign a maintenance guy to each of the property. We kind of set up their own little shop with their supplies and tools. It's been working out really well because this way they can work more directly with the managers and the residents. The residents seem to, you know, kind of embrace it, to the fact that lots of times as we're picking up papers, they actually come out and help pick up their. In the past, lots of times they would just kind of throw the garbage kind of by the corral, and now I actually see them actually putting in. So, you know, just interacting, and the guys have always been real good about interacting with our residents and stuff like that. Also, with Thanksgiving coming up, we usually have a big rash of ovens all of a sudden, because like myself, I don't use my oven very often, and then all of a sudden it comes up. So in anticipation of that, as the guys are doing their furnace inspection, daily work orders, are actually checking the ovens to make sure that everybody's ready to go for Thanksgiving and have good meals. We did come up with quite a few vacancies this month. You know, part of it's eviction and just moving and stuff like that. So especially with the holidays and coming up and stuff, our emphasis is trying to get as many turnaround as possible and house as many people, especially for the holidays, so they have some nice places to stay. As Mr. Gregory had said, we did, in the process of pretty much wrapping up our 4th house. It's beautiful. I mean, each time we've added a little bit something, and actually, like Mr. Gregory said, Carlos has been really good about orchestrating everything, and he's quite the wheeler and dealer. I think he actually saw a guy out in the parking lot with some granite tops, because we actually got granite countertops for pretty much the same price as our laminated countertops. So, and as Marie also said, the process is getting much better because we're getting our actual schedule down, and we're getting some kind of timetable so we can actually schedule contractors and maintenance staff. With that said, we actually started, like Maria said, doing our 5th one, doing a lot of the exterior work, the paint, a little bit of landscaping and stuff like that. And that also gave us a chance to actually walk through the house and stuff and get all our measurements and all what we're gonna need ahead of time, so we can actually start having everything in place, so that actually once a resident does move out, that we can actually start right away with, and all the supplies and all the tools and stuff will be there. We are still continuing to upgrade offices. Mid Terrace, we're just basically doing some painting there. Over at Indian Trail, we're actually gonna convert 2 bedrooms upstairs to office spaces. That'll be just basically some painting, and then we're actually gonna put the same type of flooring that we had over at Brighton Circle. We're gonna put that throughout the whole unit, upstairs and downstairs. Like I said, the 2nd floor, we're waiting and basically for the electrician to finish up so that we can have city inspected out, so we can actually get occupancy for the other side. Over at Jericho Circle, we're pretty much just waiting on the architects for the plans as far as the office. Any questions?
Is there an issue with the architects now? Are they having any problems with the Jericho Circle?
Oh, no, actually, they had to go back and just do some final, engineering type of adjustments. So I think now, pretty much have final, we're very close if we don't already have final blueprints, so now we'll be talking about, doing the bid package, getting the contractors ready to go.
I have a question for Jim. I'm always getting into trouble, Jim. But anyway, I met a kid from Johnson School, and I went to meet his mother last week. And I didn't even know if I should have gone to the office or call Mr. Gregory or call you. But her stone door, the bottom panel is out, and she said, now this is the 3rd week. She told me she called about 2 weeks ago, and that it hadn't been fixed.
Where was the location, do you remember?
I'll give it to you before I leave.
Was it like, which side, Eastwood, Indian Trail, Southwood, or?
I'll give it to you.
If it's Johnson School, it's probably Eastwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's Eastwood, and I'll give him the address. Yeah. Then as I drove around there, there's some other apartments without doors at all. I don't know if it's whose problem it is, if the residents do them, I don't know. Anyway, just by observation.
Well, we do try to replace them as soon as possible. The wind catches it and they fall, so that's time. We don't actually have the time, especially with the vacancy, so we'll usually just remove them and then try to schedule them in,
Okay.
especially with the winter weather.
We'll certainly, take a look at that, and if we need to just have contractors do a sweep of the building, make sure they're all functional, we'll do that.
He looks familiar.
Say hello, please.
Hello.
But that site now would have an on-site person that would be responsible for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen the truck there. It's on site. Any other questions for Jim? Okay, discussion, approval of 2014 fair market rentals, resolution 13-5.
This resolution, and it's actually the first resolution I ever presented to the board, but last year, this resolution is basically to approve the fair market rents as set by HUD. These are not our numbers. HUD presents these for every housing market that they serve. So this is HUD's numbers. The real question for the housing authority is always whether we issue these at 100%, 110%, or 90% of the fair markets. And as we have done, and we're proposing to do this year, as we have in the previous year, we're proposing 100% of the fair market rents, largely, almost entirely because of the funding that we received from HUD. That was the reason we went from 110 down to 100% last year, and it's the same reason that we're recommending to do the same thing this year, so we continue at 100% of the fair market values. Are there any questions relative to the resolution?
What would it do budget-wise? What's the difference between us giving 110% and 100%? Big picture.
It has a relatively significant impact. Our Section 8 program is an $8 million program, as it is right now at 100%. 110% would essentially push that up, to 8.1, 8.2-ish. The problem becomes we previously were running at about $100,000 net losses almost every month. That was the challenge that we had before, which is why we decided to come down. Certainly, if the expectation were to change that we might be able to receive more funding, then we could come back to the board mid-year and request that we increase this to 110%. It's just that right now the belief is that we're not going to see any additional funding as a result of the appropriations.
If when you change, does it just changes, or the people that are already there keep that until until a new
it's not an automatic
contract
cutoff,
signed?
right? It's not an automatic cutoff. It actually goes through the end of the contract term, and then at renewal, we would address it. Actually, I'll introduce everybody. I was going to do this afterwards, but Sulo's going to be starting to join the board meetings and give these Section 8 reports. Sulo is our program manager for the Section 8 program. So I'll actually allow Sue to answer that question.
When we were at 110% 2 years ago, for instance, the 2-bedroom, the payment standard was $10.54. This year they just approved for a 2-bedroom the $9.79. So that's kind of a difference. And we don't really have problems with tenants. Most of the landlords will come down to that amount. Sometimes they'll do a side agreement, which is illegal. But it works well. If they don't renew the lease, they can keep their rent at the same for another year. So we have to give them at least a year notice to drop it to that. So then the following year, they would use whatever payment standard is in effect at that time. So this year, it's up like, I think, $13.
Something to keep in mind too is this actually is an increase from the previous year's numbers. It's just the fact that we're still going to offer 100% of the issued numbers. So I think each bedroom size did increase, probably relative to some inflationary calculation, but overall we're just recommending that we provide 100% of these numbers.
So let me make sure I understand this, Keith. So right now, for 2013, if you have a 2-bedroom, the rent that we will pay a landlord is $966.
Yes.
Okay. How much of that does the resident pay?
Well, the total rent can be $966.
Correct.
So the resident, depending on their income, it could be almost all of it or next to none of it.
Okay. And if we approve the 2014 numbers, it's going to go up, I don't know, whatever that is.
$13.
$13. So now the resident has to come up with an additional $13.
Not necessarily. This is only what the maximum rent can be. The rent is set by the landlord, and the agreement is that the resident pays 30% of their income regardless of what these numbers are. So whether this number is $10,000 or $2, the resident is responsible for 30% of their income.
And we look at the gross rent also, which is the contract rent with the utility estimate. And we calculate using the lower of those two. So if the payment standard is lower, we would use that amount. If the if the gross rent is lower, we would use that amount.
And the $979 is 100% of what HUD says it should be.
Yes.
We could choose to go higher, or we could choose to go lower.
By 10%, yes.
The bigger question is, and I would look at like the 3-bedroom is, so for $1,248 a month, where can you rent a 3-bedroom home in Aurora, and what kind of home is that? And if we increase it by 10%, would the people be able to get a better home? That's my question.
I guess
And then what impact would that have financially on us, and could we do that, you know?
financially, I think it's a challenging situation, because I really don't believe, if I'm being quite honest, I don't believe that financially it would be a prudent decision. I mean, we are operating, even if the Section 8 program now at 100%, several months we've had losses. We still have a loss in that program for the full year, even at 100%. So I think financially it's dangerous, because we can't mix the Section 8 money and the public housing money. If we had the flexibility to combine those two accounts, and certainly because of how profitable our public housing program is, we could probably afford to do that kind of thing. Unfortunately, the guidelines don't allow us to use public housing funds to make up Section 8 losses. So we would be looking at, we're at $120,000 net loss now. We could easily be at a $200,000 or $300,000, and maybe not that drastic, but we still have a loss significantly in that program. So I just from a financial point of view, I would caution against it, I guess. We do have some reserves, I think roughly $500,000 that we could use for that purpose. Certainly I think $500,000 would be enough to support paying a little bit more in rent over for a 1-year time frame. I don't know how much longer we'd be able to support it under those circumstances. But yes, it probably would make a difference. You're talking about going from $1,248 to somewhere in the area of $1,350 as far as rent is concerned. So, and my familiarity with the rental market, that probably does make a reasonable difference in the kind of unit, the neighborhoods your unit can be in. Definitely would have a positive impact for the families. I just don't know how long we could sustain that positive impact.
Can you explain how, if we're at 100%, why we have, I know we used to be 110, we had bigger losses, now we're 100, still have losses. If we do it at 100%, then why does that translate into Section 8 losses?
Because the program itself isn't funded at 100%. HUD is funding the program at about 90%. I think it'll start the year a little lower, around 88, 85%. Towards the end of the year, they tend to make up the funding, but we're still only getting about 90% of the funding we are eligible for, which is why we have a loss, even though we're at 100%.
But we've been holding, it's been pretty even over the last, since you've kind of made some changes to that program.
Mm-hmm. The primary two changes we made.
It's been like 5 months or so that it's been running pretty even.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The primary two changes we made since I became the executive director was, one, we went from 110 down to 100%. The second was that we didn't issue any new vouchers. So through attrition, we actually decreased the number of families we were serving. That's probably a larger impact on why we're running about even now versus the difference in the 100 and 110%.
So is it better to have less people in better places or more people in worse places?
Socioeconomic questions. It depends on, I guess my answer it would depend largely on what kind of housing authority we envision ourselves as being. There's the question of, do you just help as many people as possible? Which in that case, we don't need to upgrade houses. We don't, we just need to get as many people as possible under the roof with a house. And that may very well be what we want to do. The other question becomes, do we want to provide better housing, but at the cost of fewer people receiving better housing? Those are questions that are a little larger than I think this resolution is going to be able to answer, though.
You're the executive director. Where are you leading this?
My leadership, I guess, on this, and my point of view is that of a previous budget manager and director of finance. I fear greatly when it comes to terms of financial in our funding, especially where we're not free to move money between one program and the other. That lack of flexibility causes us to live or die on the funding we get for a program. So I would prefer, if I was the executive director and this decision was totally up to me, I would, as recommended, go with the 100%, just because I'm always cautious and concerned about the funding. The area in which I think and it's good that we have a very diverse board, is that if the question is,
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
if the question is, can we help more people? Yes, we can. If we're willing to take the risk of financial losses. But there will come a point in time, no matter what we do, where we're not gonna have any reserves. What we're trying to do now is stretch that time frame much longer versus eating up the reserves quicker. If we run out of reserves in 2 years, then in 2 years, we're gonna have to go probably down to 80% or 90%, I mean. So it's really a matter of how long can we drag it out. And with 500,000 in reserves, it covers us at about 5 years right now.
So that kind of answered Dave's question, but that didn't answer Ray's question, which you.
I was trying to get around.
Yeah, like I was gonna let you do that.
That's how you got that one.
I was starting to go, come on. Come on, Rick, answer the question.
I would
You
say.
mentoring him or something?
I would say that because of the uncertainty with our funding, that it would be better that we did 100% of the funding right now.
No, but the question is, in your philosophy is less people, better housing, more people, lesser housing.
My philosophy is same number of people, same housing, so that when the money does come, we can do more people in better housing. That would, if I had to answer that question, yes, that would be my answer.
Good answer.
That was a good answer.
It was worth the wait.
But, I mean, I think as a board, that's a bigger question for us too,
No, right.
at some point.
You know,
Yeah, you'd like to mix the two, if at all possible, you'd like to.
Well, yeah, we want both.
I think
Yeah.
an opportunity to have that discussion in a much greater length is during the budget presentation and during that not negotiation, but when we do that presentation. Because what it begins to allow us to do is really shape, a 5-year, 10-year picture of direction. Because of where we're, this particular resolution is for a very fixed time frame, for 1 year. What we do in this time frame really doesn't impact greatly the number of families we serve, or for that matter, where they end up living, because primarily, this isn't gonna affect people unless they move.
Yeah,
So,
until the next year.
right. So there really isn't a huge impact of this resolution, but in the budget discussion, it certainly becomes a much bigger concern that we can address from a much more, philosophical level.
Yeah, it's just something for all of us to be thinking about over the next.
I'm not the only one that gets homework here.
And this needs to be passed on Wednesday, correct, Keith?
Yes, sir.
Moving on to C, discussion on redevelopment issues and approvals. Do we have any?
As we kind of discussed the development issue as it stood, there aren't any resolutions or approvals that will be needed in the near term. Like I said, at December's meeting, we'll probably bring a resolution for the award of vouchers to the program, but that's something we'll have to do a whole bid packet for, and we'll present that as necessary at the December meeting. So there isn't any major redevelopment issues. And I don't believe I have any other items. The board did get, hopefully through email, copies of the planned goals for this year, or for this coming year, basically running from October to September of next year.
Scott was so nice to print it out for us. We each have a copy.
Okay, so you do all
Thanks,
have.
Scott.
Thanks,
You're
Scott.
welcome, champ.
Killing trees, it's your job.
So the good part is you can plant them again. Like corn on the cob.
So you do have those. Certainly looking for any discussion on that. One of the major things we want to undertake is a review of all the benefits and of all of the personnel policy. We haven't had a review on that in about 2 years, I think 2 or 3 years. So we just want to kind of look at that, make sure we give that a good review. So probably by January you'll see information related to those proposals and any changes we're proposing for that. If there are no other questions, then I'm done talking.
Going once? Any questions? Anyone from the general audience have anything to say? I'm open. Rick? I'll call on you.
He's got some.
Just a quick reminder, those of you, you should have gotten an email invitation last week. You have all gotten your report out on the ULI panel. They'll be doing a general one that is open to the public and that the city did a press release about today, Wednesday night. So about 48 and a half hours from now. So it'll be at the Fire Museum, in the auditorium that they have there. You know, I'll be obviously talking about the Jericho Circle property, but also about other opportunities and for affordable housing in Aurora generally. You know, talking about things that they presented back, I think,
In July.
to you all.
What time's that at again?
6
6 o'clock.
And we got a meeting here at 4:30.
Mhm.
Man, dinner,
Bring your lunch.
bring your lunch.
And again,
I think he's provided.
it'd be nice, I'd keep
We'll
this
go out
plan to be
afterwards.
there, I know, but, so to represent, you guys have gotten yours, so, I mean, I think it's, if there was maybe a representative, I don't know, it's necessary that every single person be there, but we certainly would welcome every single person to be there if they would like to.
Bill, you free?
Yeah,
Yeah, I have her.
There we go, Bill and Champ are there, I don't have to go.
yeah.
No, Rick, I think you should be there. I have about 8 kids I need to be with.
Yeah, I'll try, I'll definitely try to make it, nothing, if nothing comes up between now and then, but
I
I'll
was gonna try to go to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably come.
You guys know Emmanuel House has a silent auction coming up Friday night, and that's at the Yellow Box Church in Naperville. You guys all familiar with the Emmanuel House?
Yeah, a little bit, but it's,
It's be a good thing to go to if you're so inclined.
Hey, the Christmas party,
Mhm.
what is our requirement?
We want everybody to donate $200. That's
Which is fine, that's
Yeah,
why I'm
we're
asking.
No, except the chair.
And do you need me to wear my like ugly sweater or what?
No, we are having a holiday party for the staff and for the board as well. I think y'all did receive invitations in your email. We aren't asking for anybody to bring anything other than yourselves. If you want to bring your spouses, we're only offering that to the board. So, but we really just want to make sure that you guys had the opportunity to RSVP and let us know what meals you wanted.
I'll eat anything, so. That's my problem. Food, I'm there.
So we'll there'll be some other just kind of updates coming out between now and then regarding just kind of reminders and when it is, where it is, kind of thing.
I think she already did that.
Yeah, it's at AmVets.
Then you good?
Already did it.
You can be Santa then.
If there's no other questions or comments, meeting's adjourned.
Can I recommend somebody change the clock so I don't think I'm here 2 hours, please?
We're all very busy working is what we don't spend a lot of time
There was
here.
2 clocks in my office today that nobody had changed either. I was like, man, I've already been here 2 hours.
I think I might still